you stay busy so you don't have to feel. If you can't sit alone for 10 minutes without reaching for your phone, without turning on music, without finding something to do, that's not productivity. That's avoidance. And that avoidance is keeping you trapped in a life you're not actually living. There's a skill most men never learn, not because it's complicated, but because everything in their conditioning taught them to avoid it. And the men who do learn it, the ones who truly master it, they don't just change. They stop being controlled by anxiety, impulses, and distraction. You can see it in their eyes. There's a clarity there, a groundedness that can't be faked. They move through chaos without being moved by it. They engage with intensity without being consumed by it. They're present in a way that makes everyone else seem half asleep. And when you ask them what changed, they all say the same thing. I stopped fighting what I couldn't control and started mastering what I could. But what they're really talking about is something deeper, something most men will spend their entire lives avoiding. This channel is for the man who stayed strong when no one noticed, the man who carried responsibility quietly and slowly disappeared. Here, strength is questioned, silence is exposed, and the cost of being the strong one is finally spoken out loud. The skill isn't meditation, it isn't discipline, it isn't achieving some external milestone. It's something far more fundamental and far more terrifying. It's the ability to sit with yourself exactly as you are, without needing to fix, change, or escape anything. Most men can't do this for 5 minutes. They reach for their phone, turn on music, find a distraction, start planning, start doing anything to avoid just being with themselves. And they think this is normal, productive, how life works. But it's not. It's avoidance. And that avoidance is what keeps you asleep. Here's what most men never realize.
The moment you stop running from yourself is the moment you start seeing reality clearly. And seeing reality clearly changes everything. Let me show you what mastering this actually looks like. He's learned to sit with discomfort without medicating it. Not just physical discomfort, emotional discomfort. The kind that most men immediately reach for: work, alcohol, sex, exercise, scrolling, anything to make the feeling stop. But he learned something most men never learn. Discomfort is information, not emergency. When anxiety shows up, it's not attacking you, it's telling you something. When sadness arrives, it's not weakness, it's data. When anger rises, it's not the enemy, it's a messenger. And he doesn't suppress the messenger or kill it or medicate it. He sits with it. He asks, "What are you trying to tell me?" He stays present with the discomfort long enough to understand what it's revealing. This is terrifying for most men because sitting with discomfort means feeling it fully. And we've been taught that feeling things fully is dangerous, weak, unproductive. So we interrupt the feeling the moment it arrives. We fix it, solve it, push through it, anything but actually experience it. But here's what that avoidance costs. Every time you interrupt an emotion before it completes, it doesn't disappear, it goes underground. And underground emotions accumulate, they build pressure, they distort your perception, they control you from the shadows. He doesn't do this. When discomfort shows up, he doesn't immediately react. He sits, he breathes, he lets the wave move through him without trying to stop it. And in that stillness, in that willingness to just be with what is, he gains access to information most men never see. He understands why he's anxious. He sees what the sadness is mourning. He recognizes what the anger is protecting. And with that understanding comes choice. Real choice, not reaction disguised as decision. This is where everything changes.
He's mastered being alone with his thoughts without needing to escape them. Most men can't sit in silence for 10 minutes without their mind creating chaos. Past regrets flood in, future anxieties pile up. The present moment becomes unbearable because the mind keeps pulling them everywhere except here. So they fill the silence. Podcasts, music, TV, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. And they think this is just how life is, how minds work, what everyone does. But he learned something different. Thoughts aren't facts, they're weather. They come and go, and you don't have to believe them, engage with them, or be controlled by them. You can just watch them pass. This is what meditation actually is. Not transcendence, not enlightenment, not leaving reality.
just the ability to sit with your own mind without being dragged around by it, to observe thoughts without becoming them, to notice patterns without being trapped in them. And when you can do this, when you can sit in complete silence with no distraction and just be with whatever your mind produces, something shifts. The constant mental noise starts to quiet. The anxiety about the future loosens. The regret about the past releases its grip. Not because the thoughts disappeared, but because you stopped giving them power. You stopped treating every thought like truth, every worry like prophecy, every fear like fact. You just let them be thoughts, nothing more. And this is the part nobody wants to hear. He's mastered accepting what is without needing it to be different. This is the hardest one, because it goes against everything we're taught. We're taught to fix, improve, optimize, change. And that drive has built civilization, created progress, achieved incredible things. But it's also created men who can't ever just be, who can't accept a moment as it is without immediately trying to make it better, who can't sit with okay without pushing for great, who can't experience now without planning later.
He learned the difference between acceptance and resignation. Resignation is giving up. Acceptance is seeing clearly. And you can't change what you can't see clearly. When something is wrong, most men immediately jump to fixing it, but he sits with it first. He accepts this is what's happening right now before deciding what to do about it. And that acceptance, that willingness to let reality be exactly what it is before trying to change it, gives him something most men never have: clarity. Because when you're not fighting reality, when you're not arguing with what is, when you're not demanding that this moment be different than it is, you can see it accurately. And accurate perception is the foundation of effective action. Most men are taking action based on distorted perception because they never stop to just see what actually is. They're so busy fighting what they don't want that they can't see what they actually have. And you can't solve problems you can't see clearly. Here's what real control actually looks like. He's mastered non-reaction, not suppression, non-reaction. When something triggers him, when someone pushes his buttons, when life throws chaos at him, he doesn't immediately respond. He pauses, he breathes. He creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, he chooses. Not based on reflex, not based on conditioning, not based on fear. Based on who he actually is and what he actually wants to create. Most men are on autopilot. Something happens and they react instantly. Anger, defensiveness, shutdown, whatever pattern they learned decades ago. And they think this is just who they are, how they're built, what their personality is. But he knows better. Those reactions aren't you, they're just old programming. And programming can be observed. And what can be observed can be changed. When he feels the urge to react, he doesn't suppress it. He just doesn't act on it immediately. He lets the wave of impulse rise and fall while he stays present. And then he chooses consciously what response actually serves him. This is freedom. Not the absence of triggers, but the space to choose your response to them. And that space, that pause between what happens and how you respond, that's where awakening lives. He's mastered knowing the difference between his thoughts and his identity. Most men think they are their thoughts. I think I'm not good enough, therefore I'm not good enough. I think she doesn't love me, therefore she doesn't. I think I'm failing, therefore I'm a failure. But he sees thoughts as events, not truth. He understands that the mind produces thoughts constantly, and most of them are just noise. Anxiety projecting into the future, regret replaying the past, patterns repeating what they've always said. And he doesn't argue with the thoughts. He doesn't try to think positive. He doesn't fight them or suppress them. He just recognizes, I'm having the thought that I'm not enough. And that's different from I am not enough. That distinction changes everything. Because when you can separate yourself from your thoughts, when you can see them as mental events rather than identity, they lose their power. You stop being controlled by every fear, every worry, every negative pattern. You become the observer of your mind instead of the victim of it. And that observation is awakening. So what does this actually create? He stops being afraid of himself. Most men are terrified of their own inner world, terrified of what they'll find if they stop distracting themselves, terrified of the emotions they've been suppressing, terrified that underneath all the performance, there's nothing. But he went into that fear and found something different.
Not emptiness, wholeness. Not weakness, strength. Not nothing, everything. He discovered that the thing he was running from his entire life was actually the key to freedom. He stops being controlled by external circumstances. When you can sit with any emotion, accept any reality, pause before reacting, you become unshakable. Not because nothing bothers you, but because you know you can handle whatever shows up. Most men's peace is conditional. I'm fine as long as work goes well, as long as she loves me, as long as things don't fall apart. But his peace is unconditional. Not because his life is perfect, but because he knows he can sit with imperfection without shattering. He stops needing to control everything. When you're afraid of your inner world, you try to control the outer world to keep the inner world safe. You micromanage, you plan obsessively, you try to prevent anything that might trigger the emotions you're avoiding. But he doesn't need to control everything, because he's not afraid of feeling anything. Things fall apart, and he's okay. Plans change, and he adapts. Loss happens, and he grieves without breaking. He becomes truly present. Most men are never actually here. They're either replaying yesterday or rehearsing tomorrow. But he learned that the only moment that actually exists is now. And when you can be fully here, without needing to escape, without needing to fix, without needing it to be different, life becomes vivid in a way most people never experience. The hero's journey isn't about conquering external enemies. It's about befriending your inner world. It's about learning to sit with yourself so completely that nothing outside you can shake you. Most men will avoid this their entire lives. They'll chase achievement, status, distraction, anything but sitting with themselves. And they'll wonder why, despite all their success, they still feel empty. He stopped wondering. He sat down. He stayed. And in that staying, in that willingness to be with himself fully, he found what everyone's actually looking for. Not escape from life, but the capacity to live it completely.
If you can't sit with yourself for 10 minutes, what are you really running from? Next episode, how to sit with yourself when you've spent a lifetime running. Drop a comment